Okay, welcome back to our newsletter AI mini course. So this is where the rubber meets the road. This is where we're going to talk about actually creating your newsletter project and the prompt that I use in that project and what type of stuff I load up into it. Now, there's a couple different approaches you can take, and again, it may depend on which generative AI tool you're using. I'm going to talk about this from Claude's perspective. When I first created the newsletter and I was doing the brand creation and the brand voice guide and the avatar and coming up with my content pillars, I basically had two different projects. I had a project for that basically newsletter brand creation project. And within that, and that was a pretty simple one, right? Like, hey, you're a newsletter brand expert and marketing expert who understands, the power of email marketing and how newsletters operate. You're going to, basically talking to the chat to basically tell it how it's going to go ahead and use this project to create different aspects of the brand, right? And there was a separate brand or a separate chat for under that project for avatar creation, for creating the newsletter name and brainstorming that, for figuring out what the content pillars are. So I would do all that under one project. Then when it comes time to actually create your issues, you're going to create a separate project. And that's where you're going to load up your avatar, your brand voice, samples that you have, and you're going to keep that all in one project and you're going to build around that. So let's just take a look, for example, at our Expert Scale newsletter project. So you can see purpose of this is just to write a daily email newsletter about topics that resonate with information and SaaS businesses trying to scale. And you can see in the instructions here, we've got an entire prompt, and it's kind of hard to read in their window. So let's go to it in a Google Doc. Okay, context. You're working on the Expert Scale newsletter, a publication designed to help knowledge entrepreneurs, consultants, and course creators build profitable online businesses. The newsletter's core mission is to deliver high-value, actionable insights that readers can implement immediately to scale their expertise into sustainable income streams. The target audience consists of, right? I talk a little bit about the readers, right? A full customer avatar profile and the content pillars have been added to the knowledge base of this project. By the way, I use the craft format when I do prompts. So that is content, role, actions, format, and tone. So role, you're an expert email newsletter writer, direct response copywriter with 10 plus years of experience crafting high converting email campaigns. Your expertise spans these areas. And again, we can take this prompt and we can put it in with this course. So you can download it and edit it and change it. You can also use ChatGPT or Claude, in the role of an expert prompt creator and ask it to create the prompt. And it's going to get something that's very similar to this. From an action perspective, for every newsletter, you're going to execute the following approach. You're going to identify the core teaching point or value proposition typically provided by the user in the chat. And I'll show you how that works. If it's not clear what the main topic for the day is, ask for clarification. You're going to determine the primary emotional hook or pain point to address. You're going to map the logical flow from problem awareness to actionable solution. You're going to select any relevant social proof case studies, examples to include. You're going to deliver a subject line, pre-header text, email content structure. Now, when we talked about the framework in the last video, we didn't really talk about the content structure, right? There are dozens and dozens, if not thousands of different, content structures for emails out there because there are literally millions of email newsletters out there. What I would encourage you to do is find a newsletter or two in your niche that you like and just model that. That's what I did when I created this newsletter, where I was like, okay, I want an opening headline. Then I want an intro section, which is going to basically be where I do the hook and introduce the core concept. Then my first subhead and my first section is going to be all about building the bridge to the content section. So it's going to be building that, making that connection and expanding on the story. When I get into my main content sections, ultimately I want there to be, 2 to 3 different sections. So like additional subheadings and sections. You can typically use 2 to 3 sections for the main content portion of the email, right? These might be 100 to 150 words each, 300 to 450 words total. The last section is going to be the summary and call to action section. So I describe exactly what I want this newsletter to look like. You can also give it a template and create a template and load that into the knowledge base and say you have a template for this in the knowledge base, go use that. And then I ask it to do some basic, quality checks, right? Are all the paragraphs 1 to 3 sentences maximum? Are they varying in length for natural rhythm? Are you limiting marketing jargon or corporate speak? Is there at least one specific actionable takeaway, right? There are things I'm asking it, and then I tell it the format I want. So again, total email length, 400 to 800 words. What I want from a paragraph structure perspective, formatting, link formatting, and then the template, I want it to spit out your subject line. I want it to spit out any alternate subject lines. I want it to spit out a pre-header, and then I want it to actually format the email. And so this prompt is what you're going to use to build out exactly what you want your newsletter to look like and the voice and tone that you want it to have. So then when you go into your project, and if you're creating a new project, you're going to go to projects and say create new project. But in this case, we already have it created, right? And so you're going to load those instructions, that prompt, into the instructions portion of this project. In this case, we've got the customer avatar. We've got, I believe this document was the content pillars. And in this case, we literally had, a year and a half of social media content posts from Facebook that we wanted to basically say, hey, this is the type of stuff I want to be talking about regularly in expert scale. If you're building your brain clone in Ugentic AI, you might export that entire database of information and say, hey, here's my brain clone from Ugentic AI, that I want to use to train up this project. And then where this goes is, it varies a little bit day to day, writing this newsletter. For example, some days I'm going to give it more information than others. This particular one that went out the other day says, hey, for the next issue, it's going out January 1st. We have a replay for our masterclass to push. So we were talking about what we were doing from a marketing perspective. I want to discuss Anik Jason's 5 predictions for 2026. Here's what those predictions are. Like, this is probably one of my more detailed prompts for this newsletter because I knew very specifically what I wanted. But then you can see, hey, here's primary and alternative subject lines. Here's the pre-header. Here's the newsletter. The future of webinars isn't what you think. What Jason and I see coming, prediction 1, prediction 2, prediction 3, right? And so it goes through that. It gives me a summary and a takeaway, gives me a call to action at the end. And in this case, it felt a little long to me. So one of the things I said was, hey, how long is this? And it's like, hey, okay, we're at approximately 1100. Yeah, it looks like we're typically around 750 to 900. Do you want me to cut this a little bit? And I basically said, yes, trim it down, make it more concise while maintaining the energy and interest. So that gave me a shortened version. I also came back to, I don't like the headline. Doesn't really make sense with this. Doesn't compel me to read. Give me 5 alternatives, right? And so you can do some of this iteration back and forth right in here until you get something that you're happy with. Then what I do is I go and then put that into a Google template that I have, because I like to keep the final versions of every single one of these newsletters in a Google Drive. So you can see I've got the Expert Scale newsletter. In this case, it was issue 2, the one I happen to have up. The date and time that it went out, the subject line that I used, the pre-header that I used, the date that it went out. I also like to create an email masthead, a little image banner that represents that brand. That I think is an important part of branding for email newsletters. So that's a part of every newsletter that we create. And then you can see I just go ahead and put that in here, and this is where I do final editing and cleanup. Now, if we look at some of these other projects in the or chats in the newsletter, let's see. This was a shorter prompt, right? For the next issue going out December 30th, let's come at this from a typical end of year retrospective. 2 days to go. I want you to flip the calendar to a new year, new goal, new opportunities. Yes, the carryover products and lessons. In this case, I wanted it to give me an outline first, right? Give me a quick outline of what you think should be included in this email. Then we'll revise that before writing. So you don't always have to ask it to go directly to writing the issue, even though that's what the project is trained to do. Some days I know that I'm being a little bit more vague and I want to see where it's going before I say, go ahead and write the whole issue. So in this case, it gave me some working titles, a proposed structure. In this case, it pulled out of the knowledge base and it actually told me, hey, it's the last day of 2024. So I got a little bit real with Claude and said, come on, you got to make sure you're getting the right dates. make sure you understand what our readers are doing, try again. Again, these AI tools aren't perfect. This is why I personally don't put them on autopilot, because they can make mistakes like this. So then it went through, gave me an update, said this is much better, go ahead and write. Let's see if we can find one where I had a shorter prompt. This one was a little bit more in depth. This was talking about the Make My Clone Challenge and product market fit. Let's see, this one was on Facebook Andromeda. So again, common topics, right? Hey, for the next issue, should I share one of the big takeaways from our meeting in Tampa that's wrapping up? So like this was something that we talked about at that event. It was very relevant. I had some notes to share. So basically each day your prompt is going to vary a little bit. And if we go back, there are also some at the beginning of this newsletter where, we pulled directly from the knowledge base for issues. This one was a little bit longer. But you can see within this one project now, I've got all of the different issues, right? On your list. So again, a lot of these are about the same length in the prompt, and I'm just trying to give it some context of like, hey, this is my goal for today. Now, if I were writing this, let me see if I can find one where I've attached something. I don't know if it'll show me that or not. Oh, you know what? I know where it was. Or maybe not. I'm not seeing the one that I was looking for. So if let's say I found an article that I wanted to share, right? I might go in here for a new chat and say, in today's chat, I want you to review the attached article and put our spin on it, right? And then I might attach, so if we had an article from, Seth Godin or Gary Vee or Russell Brunson or someone else that I wanted to say, hey, I want us to kind of dissect this, do our own analysis of this, I would save that article as a PDF. I would upload that PDF to this chat, and I might just say, hey, in today's chat, I want you to review this, right? And so that's a way that you can go ahead and access that information and those links that you might get from a Feedly. So there's a lot of different ways of doing this, but for the most part, once you've got all the information that you need into your project, once you've kind of got your style and your voice, writing each day about what you want to write about is pretty quick. And just giving it a little bit of guidance and then letting Claude take it away. And then the final lesson here, we'll talk about editing.